Canada orders China's Hikvision to close their Canadian operations.
Hikvision or Hikvision. I don't know how to say it, but
it's always been Hikvision to me.
I've heard it both. You haven't.
On this episode of ResiWeek, streaming is now king, HDMI 2.2, and Canada bans Hikvision. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 490, Banned in Canada. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Mr. Jeremy Glowacki. He's the editor-in-chief at Projector Central. How are you, sir?
Doing well, Matt. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on this holiday week for us in the U.S.
Me too.
Yeah,
we got a holiday tomorrow.
You have one as well. I don't.
When you listen to this, will be yesterday. Yeah, Canada Day, which is.
Oh, I
July
thought it was
1st.
I thought you just said Thanksgiving, like every couple of months or something. Like
we do that too. Turkey's always good, man. Then we got my good friend, Mr. Bob Archer. He's the senior editor over at CE Pro. How are you, sir?
Awesome. And yourself, Matt?
I am doing fantastic. As Jeremy said, I'm getting ready to celebrate 2 holidays in 1 week. All right, let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. It's official. Streaming is king, and one provider rules above all others. This is not the one you expect either. Go read through the article. It's based on a Nielsen Gauge report that is showing that for the first time ever, streaming accounted for 44.8% of TV viewership, whereas broadcasting cable garnered only 20.1% and 24.1% respectively. So 44.2% of all TV viewership. Again, that's been on a huge rise for, the last number of years. The most interesting thing that we've pulled out of this, though, is that one company, one streaming provider, sort of kind of took the cake on this, whereas YouTube, as far as YouTube main, which is a term I've not yet heard, but they're referring to the YouTube homepage, essentially, or streaming app, not YouTube TV, which is a different entity, that viewership has grown 120% since 2021 and represented 12.5% of all TV viewing in May. Jeremy, let me start with you on this one. Are you as surprised as I am that YouTube is kind of the juggernaut beating out Netflix, who's typically considered the number one player in this game, only getting 7.5%?
Yeah, that's what jumped out at me by far. I was, like you, confused about the YouTube main terminology. I actually had to look that up and see if I was missing a streaming service that they'd introduced. But the fact that people are actually streaming programming, not just how-to videos and that sort of thing like I do, and get in rabbit holes researching random memories from the 70s and things that get carried away with, whatever it is. But people actually using it for programming like you would watch television is news to me, frankly. And I thought, streaming is definitely, taking over. Like this didn't seem like a surprise that it had passed. But of course, there's a lot of folks locked into the traditional way of watching television on cable systems. And it's hard to make that leap comfortably when you've been doing it for so long, even though it costs a lot more and you get all these channels you don't need and that sort of thing. And the fact that it's not Netflix that's the leader is just the one that you always hear about, especially like in my projector world that I'm in now. It was a big deal, like having Google TV as a smart platform on certain lifestyle projectors because it allows Netflix natively. And that was not something that was available before in some of the other earlier platforms. So you just think, oh yeah, everybody wants Netflix, but of course it's what's available on Netflix. And sometimes there's just not that driving content like there have been in prior years. Like for a while, everyone needed HBO because there are certain shows that were just such in the moment, trendy shows that people wanted to watch, that everyone had to have HBO in some form or fashion, whether it was streaming or on cable. And, there's really, I don't hear much about certain shows that are just driving people to a service right now. And I feel like it's kind of making it seem like there's not one major leader in across the board. And maybe folks are finally just deciding, I've got to go find what I want, what I've always liked, and I'm going to just look it up on YouTube and watch it there, and I don't have to pay for it because I already get it. So maybe that's what's happening. Again, this was a huge surprise to me, and it makes me rethink all about what's happening out there in the world that I assumed before it's not true anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting because I watch, there's a specific show that I watch that used to be on Netflix, and I'm assuming their deal expired and they transitioned to just their website and YouTube. And while the viewing experience is, I'll say, tolerable on YouTube, it's not as simplistic as, hey, I want to watch season 8 of this show and then just hit the play next episode, play next episode, play next episode that you do in all the other platforms. I continually have to, go back to their page and select the next episode that I want to watch and queue that up. But again, I'm shocked at how much, not that I watch a ton on YouTube, but I do watch a fair amount of specific shows that are on YouTube. Bob, we were talking pre-show, one of the things that is sort of driving this that I heard about, but I cannot find the article that supports this. So we'll take it with a grain of salt. But one of the big things that supposedly is driving the streaming side, but specifically the YouTube streaming side, is that kind of boomer generation has finally got fully on board with streaming, and they're using all the streaming platforms, but specifically they're using YouTube to go find all the shows that they grew up watching. I know my parents fall into this. They're watching a ton of shows that they used to love that are most easily found on YouTube. Was that I don't want to say was that the demographic that was holding back, but it does seem to be that was the missing demographic that allowed these numbers to really jump up the last couple of years.
It aligns anyway on the surface. I would also say, and we were talking about this before we started the tape, but the fact that people are feeling overwhelmed with all these fees, you subscribe to this, you subscribe to that. I think one of the brilliant things that YouTube has done, or Google has done, is they've made the app available on these smart TV platforms. So no matter if you're on Apple tvOS, or you're on the Roku platform, or some kind of Android TV, Google TV platform, you can download the YouTube app onto your streaming device, and then from there you can start watching whatever your heart desires. And if that's retro content from the 70s and 80s, which is hard to get on the Netflixes of the world, then I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Bob, because there was a minute there where Apple TV didn't have the regular YouTube available, I believe. It went from being on there to not being on there, and it was a big miss for me, who I'm an Apple TV user, and I would just need to look something up, and it was a lot more fun to be able to see it on the TV as opposed to on my phone or something. And all of a sudden my kids are like, grabbing some clip of something they wanted to show me. I'm like, wait a second, that changed. I didn't know that. Somewhere along the way, the news didn't hit me. Unfortunately, with me being in the industry, I should have known, but whatever. Kids always know first, right? So that's a good point as far as making that available everywhere.
Yeah, that's great. All right, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from Residential Systems. HDMI specification version 2.2 has been released by the HDMI forum. Improvements are including a 96 gigabit per second bandwidth and next generation HDMI fixed rate link technology. This is not a massive bump, I guess, but sort of a massive bump in terms of the numbers. 2.1 supported 48 gigabits. As I previously mentioned, 2.2 is going to support 96 gigabits, as well as they're doing a lot to work on the latency indication protocol to try and fix audio video sync, etc. Bob, let me start with you on this. I am aware and recognize that we are constantly moving forward with tech, obviously. I am trying to fully grasp the use case of 2.2. They're saying that the 96 gigabit is going to allow supported resolutions and refresh rates of 12K at 120, 16K at 60, allowing 8K at 60 in 444 color space, which makes my pro video self very, very happy. I just don't know where we're going to use that right now. What source devices do we have that allow 8K anything in all reality? Like, I know we have displays that do it, but is there a use case for this right now? Or is this future proofing for hopefully down the road?
I think they are definitely looking over the horizon to what is next, because you are right. There is at this point, there is no need. There is no 8K content out there. I don't even know if there's public appetite for these higher performance figures. Maybe Jeremy's audience would want something like that, because they in a lot of ways are driving a lot of the standards that are developed. The file audience, but for most people, Bob in small town USA, they could care less. All they want is their streaming service to reliably stream without buffering.
Yeah. And again, I recognize that there are gamers that use this in the pro world. I've got some friends that are filming in 8K. Again, as a niche market, I get that. Right. I still, to this day, have not seen a Yankee game in 4K. Most golf tournaments aren't in 8K or 4K. Most, like Wimbledon just started today. Tim, be very happy. I'm not watching it right now, but it's in high def. It's not in 4K. Literally anywhere that I'm aware of. Are we going to use this, or is this going to become a niche? Like, have we hit the limit of what we're actually going to use for the foreseeable future for the general populace?
I think it's one of those things where this is a consortium that has a mission and mandate to keep driving the market forward, and so they're doing that, and they're finding ways to, add ingredients, add resolution, add capabilities down the road, or to make the spec capable of that, and let the innovators innovate in terms of sources, display devices, all the connective tissue with audio and all that. It takes so long for the products to actually get developed, to find the, actually go to market opportunities. So I was talking to, just on a call with Epson about something new that's coming from them. And we were talking about, HDMI 2.1. And I said, while we're talking about HDMI 2.1, can you talk about how long would it be for something with 2.2, which has just been announced, to see something in the market? And he was saying, not on the record per se, don't quote me, so I'm not quoting him, but I said, just give me a ballpark, are we talking like a year, 2 years, way down the road? And it's around 2 years before anything would start to be available. Now, what's it achieving? That's a good question. I don't think I have the answer to that yet. I do think that there's like a way that gaming kind of does give the opportunity for content, just because there's so much more that you can do just from a digital standpoint, just to create something that's cutting edge and whatever, pushing the envelope, so to speak. It's not those live events like you're talking about, sporting events and all that, obviously. I do like the idea of the sync pieces being kind of fixed, those problems. Yeah. So you're creating, you're solving problems. You're not just pushing the envelope. So maybe that is something that's very important that's not being achieved with 2.1. You said personally you've seen a lot of sync issues on
Oh, we have
project.
sync issues almost daily. It's ridiculous.
So I like that being a goal of this. It doesn't, of course, it's not a, sexy kind of type of thing, but it's a problem solution to a problem. So good question. Hard to tell down the road. When you get to a point, you just get a little cynical about what's the next big resolution, and you're not even getting there yet. And now we're changing the goal, to this other thing that's going to go beyond what the thing is we don't even have yet. So it gets frustrating. It gets confusing. I don't think the consumers who are trying to deal with this on their own would understand any of it. They want to buy their TV and have their, sound bar work with it and that type of thing. So it's definitely a pro thing to know about. And I think that there's just a lot here that is not going to be figured out until manufacturers start to implement it and get the pieces to work together.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes, and more importantly, see if we end up getting a source device that'll do it. Like, I know we sell receivers that are quote unquote 8K, but we got nothing we're feeding it with.
In fairness to the industry, though, it probably does give them a target to strive for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That if these companies can continually engineer, through their R&D processes, better and higher performing products, we all win at the end of the day, as long as, I suppose, it's affordable for homeowners.
Yeah, I can't wait to get in a new version of the Xfinity box that supports 8K in 444 and sends me nothing but highly compressed 1080. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Well, and
not cynical at all.
one of the things that I did kind of pick up on when I was asking that question about what do you do, that it's 2.1 apparently has been kind of available and implemented for like 5 to 6 years now. It seems like
it's been around for quite a while,
since 2017. Yeah,
and so
and it's a good spec.
Yeah, and the thing is with these specs, you as a manufacturer, you don't have to implement every bit of it. It's like you can pick and choose elements that you want for your product. So that's another thing. It's like if this achieves a certain goal, then you're just having that part be added to the other stuff that you already do successfully. So maybe the implementation doesn't have to take forever,
That's a great point. All right, let's change topics completely for a second. This comes to us from routers, as well as CTV, CBC, and a variety of other places. Canada orders China's Hikvision to close their Canadian operations. In something that somewhat shocked me when this came out earlier this week, the U.S. has put them on a do not buy list for, I think that's like 5 years, 6 years now, where you could not sell HIC or high-K devices into any U.S. government facility, et cetera, et cetera. Canada has decided that they want to cease operations, or they've ordered Hikvision to cease operations in Canada over national security concerns, et cetera, et cetera. Bob, this one, I got to say, this one kind of caught me off guard because it was Canada doing it. And even though I'm Canadian and I live here, this is not common for us. We don't typically do this this broadly and this expansively, really. When you see something like this, how does this affect, or do you have any idea how this affects their go-to-market strategy in the country? When the government tells them to cease operations, does that mean they have to pull out of their headquarters here or their offices, or does that mean they can't sell here? Do you have any idea where this is going?
I don't. I would say on the surface, all it means is that all they could do in theory is service existing product in the field. I know here in the U.S., a lot of security companies, the manufacturers, they'll market the fact that their product line is approved for government use.
Right.
There's a whole certification process that they have to go through with all of that. Obviously, high K or Hikvision I don't know how to say it, but
It's always been Hikvision to me.
they're not able to go through those same processes right now. So, who knows how it's going to impact them. I would think from the Canadian point of view, maybe they're trying to garner some goodwill with the U.S. to align themselves with their southern neighbors.
That's adorable that you think that. I love
Yeah,
It just seems it does seem so political, though. I mean, the timing is weird. That's what I.
It's so odd.
It's out of the blue.
It's like when did they suddenly get the intelligence that they needed to say this is a security threat that the U.S. had already determined, and I tend to want to defend. I feel like China can be a boogeyman for things, and a political pawn from a competitive standpoint, and whoever's in charge needs to use them in certain ways or not use them in certain ways. And you hear the human rights parts of this, and that
that was one of my questions. Was we've known that there are concerns with these manufacturers over privacy for forever. The human rights thing sort of gets sometimes mentioned, sometimes not. It is mentioned in the article, but when Jolly, one of our ministers, was talking about it, it was strictly a privacy thing. Do you think both of those are playing into this? Do you think this is just political? Do you think all of a sudden they're concerned about privacy of Canadians all of a sudden?
Yeah, I don't know what it's. The timing is so odd to me still, and I do truly believe that there are concerns, especially with AI, that the fact that it's been known that these cameras can monitor individuals across multiple places, whether they're connected at all or not, and that they can track individuals. And I don't know if suddenly they just had a wake-up call that this is a problem, a concern. I don't know why the difference in realization from one country to the other would occur. And you just look at the obvious, what's different, and it's this political climate. And I give Canada more credit than that, frankly, as you defend your country as well. I would say, it doesn't sound like Canada to do that, but it just, if it quacks like a duck kind of moment,
I was going to say, maybe the one thing that if you were to read into it, maybe the Canadian government caught China doing something and doesn't want to publicly accuse them.
That's the only thing I can think of, is that because again, it's very, and I'm aware that most of our listeners don't follow Canadian politics very much. I'm guessing that you guys don't spend a ton of time listening to it. I unfortunately do. And this is a rarity. We just don't see this kind of response, especially in the marketplace, right? We'll see it on the political side, but on the marketplace, in the business world, the last time they did something this, shall we say, aggressive, was when they arrested the daughter of Huawei's CEO, I believe, like 4 or 5 years ago. Like it's very random. One of the other news outlets is reporting that Best Buy, Home Depot, and Lowe's have already pulled Hikvision, which again, I question that a little bit because we no longer have Lowe's in Canada as of last year, but who knows? Does this, I'll wrap with this, and either one of you can answer, or both can answer. Seeing this type of a report, does this concern either of you that the U.S. may follow suit? Or is it too big of an entity, potentially, for the U.S. to consider a cease operations order?
Like to go beyond what they've already done, which is mostly government contract situations, like military and that type of thing. Yeah, it would be interesting to see that. It seems like beyond everything being government related, there have been other companies that have had similar situations where they've continued to sell consumer products in the country. Like Costco continues to do business with a competitor to Hikvision that had also security issues. Names not occurring to me right now, but we actually reviewed one of their home products, and my reviewer was like, "Yeah, I feel like kind of a renegade here doing this because this is basically banned in the USA, except it's not. It's just through the government stuff." I wouldn't. I don't know anything is off the table anymore with the way the U.S. is functioning federally. So it could be, but I would be surprised if Canada was the leader and the U.S. was the follower in this case, just in terms of immediate reaction. But I think Bob's onto something. There could have just been a situation that occurred that is being kept quiet. Maybe from a diplomatic standpoint, they don't want to mention it, but it is a major thing to say you're not allowed to do business here. I don't know whether there are other examples of that. Does anything come to mind?
I couldn't find anything off the top of my head, nor in a quick search.
That doesn't sound like a normal thing at all.
No. And I think that's what I found so interesting was when I first saw the headline, I assumed it was similar to what the U.S. did, where they put essentially a halt on being allowed to use any of those devices in a government or military, like anything government owned, you can't use that. And then when I read it, I'm like, hold on, they're trying to kick them out? So I reached out to a couple of my vendors who actually sell that, and none of them have responded to me. But outside of something that was essentially taken off the shelves for health reasons or, some sort of contamination, like that type of stuff, I cannot find anything where this has happened in the past. It's very interesting to see. So, all right, gentlemen, let's leave it there on that bright note. Thank you both for joining us. Bob, if people want to connect with you, learn more about CE Pro, where can they do that?
They can go to cepro.com, or if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's BA1 Boston.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Jeremy, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Projector Central, learn more about your podcast, where can they do that?
Yeah, you should go to projectorcentral.com and check us out. We've got a lot of really long, detailed reviews of projectors of commercial, home theater, and lifestyle levels. And you can check out the podcast there where I interview our reviewers. We'll get deep dives into their deep dives. So if you haven't had enough from their 4,000 word reviews, you can listen to us talk about them. And that's what we do. And find me on LinkedIn if you want to chat personally.
Excellent. It's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. All right. Thank you for joining us as well. Happy Canada Day yesterday. When you're listening to this, happy July 4th, Independence Day on Friday as well. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on most of the socials. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.